have it. I don't know if I can pull it up while
Yeah,
we're
if you want to, you can. Um,
All right, good
what,
evening, YouTube and Facebook. We are streaming live.
Hello, YouTube and Facebook. We will be starting the program momentarily.
oops.
Good evening, everybody. Good evening and welcome to the Veterans Breakfast Club. I'm Todd DiPastino. I'm the Executive Director of the Veterans Breakfast Club. And we come to you every Monday night at 7, every Thursday night at 7 to bring you stories of veterans. Veterans Breakfast Club, as you know, is a nonprofit. We've been around for 17 years. It's a place where veterans come and share their stories. And tonight we are going to have veterans come and share their stories, but they're not stories from their time in uniform. They're stories from their time as private military contractors. And as you know, this is something that we've discussed here at the Veterans Breakfast Club. In the US, the use of private military contractors skyrocketed in the 21st century to the point where there were more contractors in Iraq, American contractors in Iraq and Afghanistan than there were uniformed personnel, and more contractors died in those wars than American uniformed personnel. So tonight we have Alan Chiasson and Mike Hardy, who served in Iraq and Afghanistan, both of them. But we're going to have them focus especially on their time in Afghanistan, delivering the mail, a hazardous activity, as you'll hear. And we look forward to having a conversation with them about that. Before we get to Alan, Doc, and Money Mike, I want to talk about a special program we have coming up. Glenn Flickinger, we are
Hello,
having
everybody.
how you doing, Glenn?
Great, great.
We have a special program Wednesday night.
Wednesday night.
Wednesday night, December 17th at 7 p.m.
Part two of our tour of Sicily and Italy, battlefields of Europe, October of 26, coming up fast. Part one was 3 or 4 weeks ago. We covered Sicily. We're going to be spending 5 nights. We're basically following the path of the 45th Division through Sicily, cross the Straits of Messina, which we will cross in the evening during our tour. And then from there, we head up the boot of Italy to the famous invasion beaches of Salerno. We'll get to Cassino, Monte Cassino, and Anzio as well before we finish in Rome. So part two of that Wednesday night, 7 p.m.
So it's an exciting tour to talk about because it involves 5 nights in Sicily and then up the boot in southern Italy. The farthest north that we go is Rome. And it's really going to be focusing on that, Mud, Mules, and Mountains campaign in southern Italy in 1943 and 44 and before it moved on in 45. So we're going to be talking about, we'll talk about some of the nuts and bolts of the travel, but also trace some of the history that we'll be seeing on the trip. So this is Wednesday, December 17th. And Glenn, do you get overtime for this? You come back the next night?
Time and a half on Thursday for sure. Maybe double time since it's like the week before Christmas.
Maybe. We'll negotiate that.
Yeah, if it's mid-December, it must be time for a discussion about the Battle of the Bulge. We are having the 28th Infantry Division historian on again, who was introduced to us. I saw Colin is on the program tonight, Colin Heaton. Colin introduced us to Walter, and I know Colin, I'm going to murder his last name, Zapatosny. Nice Irish name. I spoke with Walter today. Walter's a PhD in history and has been following the 28th Division for many years. The book is The Battle of the Bulge, but he focuses quite a bit on what inspired these men to fight under such terrible combat conditions that the 28th went through. The 28th, just before the Battle of the Bulge, had been torn apart in the Battle of the Hürtgen Forest, and they were sent to the Ardennes to rest, which didn't happen. So kind of definitely a look at the 28th participation of the Battle of the Bulge, but also this part about the research he did on what the men said about why they fought and the inspiration to fight in such terrible combat conditions.
So it's the Battle of the Bulge, Thursday, December 18th at 7 p.m. And then the following Monday, we come back and we're going to have a USS Pueblo veteran, Stephen Wolk. Many of you will remember we did a couple programs on the Pueblo, which was a ship that the North Koreans captured in January 1968 and took 83 American sailors as POWs and held them for 11 months, 11 torturous months. One of those POWs was Stephen Wolk, who has written a new book about his experience. He was one of the sailors who was wounded in the brief fighting aboard the Pueblo when it was captured. So Stephen's going to join us. He's going to share his story. That'll be Monday, December 22nd. All right. Thank you, Glenn. And thank you all for joining us tonight. I want to introduce Alan Chiasson and Mike Hardy. Mike Hardy is a Marine who served in 1982 to 1994. As you can see from Alan Chiasson's handle there on Zoom, he's a Navy corpsman, Doc Chase. And it was Doc Chase who wrote this book that got my attention. Actually, it was Colin Heaton who I think connected us. I believe, Colin, you connected us to Alan Chiasson. Thank you very much for that. Alan Chiasson and his co-writer here, Edward Ford, wrote this memoir of their unusual service in Afghanistan, delivering the mail. It's called Postcards Through Hell, the true story of the most remarkable U.S. mail delivery service in Afghanistan, the Pony Express. So we're going to talk about the book. We're going to talk about their service. Doc, thank you for joining us.
Yeah. Wow.
Doc, do you have another device maybe tuned into Zoom?
Yes, I'm gonna remove the other Doc Chase, and we'll be fine.
Good.
Okay, go ahead, Doc.
All right. Can you hear me now?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay. I found that map.
Oh, okay. Good. We'll show that map. But first, before we get to the map, I do want to have you talk a little bit about your Navy service. Tell us when you joined the Navy and what you did in the Navy.
I was in the ROTC or NJROTC for 3 years. Oh, it looks like I have to join the meeting again.
No, you're good.
Don't
You're
join.
Good. Don't
You're
join.
here already.
You're
Okay.
good, Doc.
That'll screw us up, Doc.
Okay, I lost the screen.
Okay.
I can't see anything.
We can hear you.
Yeah, we can hear you and we can see you.
Oh, there we go. There we go.
Okay.
So I can post that map in the chat.
Okay, very good.
Paste. Where did it go? Why me?
This is making for riveting conversation, Doc.
Yeah, this stuff wasn't around when I first joined.
We'll get to the map. The map is important. Actually, why don't you say why the map is important? Could you tell us?
Well, it was important for us. We're doing these missions, from Kabul to Kandahar, or from Kandahar to Herat, from Herat to Mozar Sharif. We're essentially taking Ring Road around the entire country, and it was important for us to know where all these medical locations were at. And why is it not posting? It posted earlier under the chats.
We'll get it from you.
Yeah, well, you just have to let me know.
Yeah, we'll get it from you. You mentioned the Ring Road. Let's talk a little bit about the map. And just because I'm going to share, I'm starting rather than starting at the beginning, I'm going to start kind of in the middle of the story.
Okay.
One of the routes that you took around Afghanistan to deliver the mail was this remarkable road, the largest, I think, ring highway. What do we call it? Belt highway belt route or whatever in the world.
A01, Route 1, Ring Road, the Road of Death. It was known and had many monikers.
And it's a desperate attempt, I think, to unify Afghanistan. a country that isn't really a country. It's not really a nation, not really a state, the way other states are states. It doesn't have a, one sovereign government. It's really broken up into different conflicting groups. But this road was an attempt, I think, to bring the country together, and it turned out to be one of the most dangerous roads in the world when you were on it, correct?
Oh yeah, a lot of times people talk about uh, Route Irish in Iraq. The
Yeah.
buyout from the airport to the embassy as being the most dangerous road in the world at the time. But after Ring Road, it's a different type of battle. We never saw the enemy in Iraq. They might have popped off an IED or a couple of rounds at you, but we always kept moving. In Afghanistan, the Taliban had wanted to fight, and their tactics were to choke the convoy. They'd try to hit a lead vehicle and get you all backed in, and then they would have it like a secondary attack with RPGs and small arms fire and whatnot. But we had no choice but to take that route. There weren't any kind of alternative routes. And so what we ended up doing was having the element of surprise. So we were trying to avoid being time, place predictable. So we would leave at different times. We had the advantage going there, but they knew that we were going to be taking this route back. And that's usually when we got hit the most.
And what was your job? What was your specialty here?
Combat medic. I was one of the lead medics. I was the first medic there. So I ended up putting their medical profile program together.
And this is for people who are like you, who are working to deliver the mail. You're private security experts, contractors, and you're getting shot up, you're getting hurt, you're getting wounded, and you've got to provide medical care for those who are getting hurt.
Yeah. Our mission on attack was to get off the X. We had to we have a down vehicle. We would have to cross deck. We'd have to set up a defilade somehow so that we could provide suppressive fire, move our wounded over to another vehicle. We would destroy the vehicle that we would leave behind. If it was a mail truck that got hit, we set it on fire because it was obviously important cargo that we didn't want to fall into the hands of the enemy. We certainly didn't want them to get any of our armor or any of our technology or communications and things of that nature. So we would throw thermite grenades in it. I think Ed would run routes following the military. We tried to go behind like a route clearing unit or something so that we could avoid the IEDs that were placed along the route. And then, of course, they had air assets that we could capitalize on at the time. But for the most part, we did not have any military support.
So you were your start in the world of the military was with the Navy as a Navy corpsman.
Correct.
When did you join the Navy?
In '78. So I got in on a program from NJROTC. So I went in as an E3, and I got out in '81. I was supposed to do a 3x6, but I elected to get out after I did my active duty time. When I was in the military, I was stationed at NAS Alameda, and there was a private program for civilian paramedics that they allowed the military to join. It was the first thing. So I took a paramedic program while I was still in the Navy. So when I got out of the military, I was already nationally registered, and I've been a paramedic ever since.
And so it was your work as a paramedic that got you involved with contracting in the war zone. Yeah.
Yeah. My background, I've got 10 years on SWAT as a tactical paramedic. I've got 12 years with Texas Task Force 1. That's FEMA's USAR team. And I deployed to New Orleans for Hurricane Katrina. I did actually 2 back-to-back deployments. And while I was there, I met a bunch of Blackwater guys that were telling me that they needed medics in Iraq. But when I checked online for the positions, I didn't understand that DynCorp had what they call it, DynCorp FLIZ or something like that, which is their international group. And so when I clicked on that one, I found out this IPLO position, and I was already a peace officer, so I signed up for that, and I got accepted into the program.
What's IPLO?
international police liaison officer.
Okay, so that's how you got your start. And I see that we have Don Vale, who says that you were with his son when he was employed with SOC. And what is SOC?
Special Operations Consulting. They got bought out by Day and Zimmerman, and they kept the SOC acronym and they changed it to Securing Our Country.
Securing Our Country. Okay. So how did you end up getting this mail, being on one of these teams delivering the mail in Afghanistan?
Well, Mike and I were working together at FOB Echo in Iraq. That was located in Ad Diwania. We were training 188 Kenyan TCNs, and I was the medic on that one, but I was doing clinical medicine. My job there was to fill in for medics that were on leave. So they're popping me around all these different FOBs. I'd do 1 month here, 1 month there, 1 month there. Well, at that particular FOB, that medic never came back. So I ended up staying there for like 3 months. I met Mike. I had met Ed earlier. Him and I worked together at DynCorp. He trained me. And then Ed had moved to Afghanistan with SOC, and then Mike went right behind him. So Ed and Mike were already in Afghanistan. Mike was on a mission, marker 24. Mike, you want to talk about that?
Yeah, let's have Mike. This is Mike Money. Mike Hardy, how are you?
I'm doing great. How you guys doing tonight?
Good. So you were involved here in Afghanistan before Doc got there.
Yeah, I came from Iraq and went straight over. I had already worked PSD work before, so that's what I was.
And I'm sorry, PSD is what?
Protection details, like
Okay.
protecting people. I did a year and a half with DynCorp before I went to SOC, and I was working with SOC in Iraq, waiting to go to Afghanistan because they had already told me that's where I was going to be going. So that way I could help start up the new mission that they were trying to start over there in Afghanistan. And when we first got there, we were doing small jobs SOC had picked up because we had a local family in Afghanistan that you have to have that was, ran the villas that we stayed in. And we had to use their name on those kind of jobs. And at first we were just doing small things like small protection, moving bank money sometimes. And then we picked up some work with OGA groups. And I didn't know if I could say what the OGA group was or not, but you pretty much know who I'm talking about. They're along the borders. And what we would have to do is deliver any essentials they needed. Like sometimes we would deliver top secret vehicles that they were testing out along the borders that nobody else knew they had. So we would have to keep them locked up in these trucks where we couldn't even look at them. Mm-hmm. And only time we did is when one of the trucks caught fire, we had to take the vehicles out of it and put them in another truck. So, but that's kind of what we started with before we jumped on to the post office, because they found out how good we did when we first went to Skin on a movement. And that's how we basically got it.
So I see a couple comments in the chat here. This is the question that I had too, and that I think I anticipated. We have so many people here on this Zoom who served in Vietnam or in the Vietnam era, and they remember the mail being delivered by the Army. The mail was something that the military did. How did it come to you guys delivering the mail?
Well, I mean, part of the reason was because, like I told you before, if we got hit as contractors, it was less of a sting on the United States. And if the military got hit, it would look a lot worse because they were bigger groups when they got hit. We were only 2 or 3 Americans with Europeans who drove for us and Afghanis that carried the PKMs up top. So it was only 2, 3 Americans if we got hit. So it made a difference.
So you had told me that you guys had a smaller footprint, right? It would be less exposure for the U.S. military for you to be out there delivering mail. Was there a transition? Did that come about in Afghanistan, or was it that way from at the very beginning of the war?
No, it took a while. We delivered critical supplies, food, fuel, ammo, weapons, vehicles, to a lot of ODA sites throughout the AO, and we were we had like a 98% drop rate. We were very successful. Where other people had failed prior to, we did that for a length of time before the Department of Defense had this contract available. It was sometime after 2009 that the Pony Express kind of came to fruition. So they saw that we were doing this stuff. The military wasn't successful or didn't have the time to take care of the mail, so they subbed it out to us, and then we ran that contract all the way up to December 24th, 2016.
Okay. And again, this is your book, Postcards Through Hell, the true story of the most remarkable U.S. mail delivery service in Afghanistan, the Pony Express. And you can get it. Is this picture, the cover picture from the Ring Road?
Yeah, that's one of them. That's a mail mission right there.
That's a mail mission right there. Wow. And this is a team of you who delivered the mail?
This is 3 teams. One team is on leave. So you see the mail trucks are all boxed in the back. They're Mitsubishis and Volvos and stuff like that on flatbeds. And then we have the Ford F-550 gun trucks, which we ran. So 3 gun trucks per mission. And each team had their own configuration, which was kind of beneficial in a way, because a lot of times if they were to try to attack us based on, again, TTPs, and
TTPs
another team's running it.
TTPs are what?
Techniques, tactics, and procedures.
Okay.
So, typically my team ran a lead gun truck, 2 mail trucks, a middle gun truck, 2 mail trucks, and then a follow gun truck, which is technically or typically where the medic would ride. And it was beneficial for me to have like an eyeball view of what was going on in front of me so that I could react appropriately. But I did run missions as a navigator in the lead vehicle as well, which, scared the shit out of me, because I kept thinking, well, what's going to happen if something happens to me,
Yeah.
And so, and Ed, I told Ed about that, and he said, look, man, to get the monkey off your back, you just got to go ahead and do it. And so what I decided to do is just train everybody up to speed on combat lifesaver, trade all the Afghans on basic first aid, and, roll the dice.
Boy. So it was your success in delivering these critical supplies that led the Army or the military to then assign this contract to you guys for delivering the mail, which...
Well, there might be some cost analysis involved. There was an Afghan convoy team called the Four Horsemen, but when they ran convoys, they ran 500 trucks at a time.
Wow.
And that's kind of like herding cats. They got hit constantly, and but their protection detail was never static in the stick. What we call the stick is how the vehicles move as a unit type of a deal. These guys ran up and down the convoy because it was so lengthy, and so if they got hit, if one of their fuel trucks got hit or something like that, then they would just send a gun truck down there to kind of either recover or to do whatever they needed to do to get the convoy rolling again. In our case, we ran in such a small unit. We were able to run faster. We were much more mobile. We had better defensive tactics. Of course, we didn't have the weapons that the Four Horsemen did, but we tried to form an alliance with them because they were carrying Dishkas and RPG-5s, RPG-7s. We just had AK-7s, PKMs, initially, and then we finally went to an M4 platform, maybe some 240 Mike, some grenade launchers that were retrofitted onto AK-47s, and then of course our trucks that we use as weapons as well.
Another thing that a lot of people don't know, when the Four Horsemen were running those runs, the Army would give 35% of their loads up, because the Four Horsemen would stop at different towns and let people get in the trucks and unload stuff out of the trucks. So their deliveries were coming in at around 65%, and they were okay with that. But then when they started realizing how many loads were getting taken, that was another reason they decided to start using guys like us.
And this is mail. And even in the 21st century, I think, from what I understand from your book, even in the 21st century, mail is important for morale.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
So even with all our communications and some people being able to talk to their loved ones back home or email, There's still packages being delivered. I mean, here, in Western Pennsylvania, there are plenty of organizations that come to Veterans Breakfast Club events, and we collect items that are then sent, packaged, and sent. Once we get them out the door, I don't really think much about how they actually get to the FOBs or to the bases in Afghanistan and Iraq. It's just they just disappear into the mail stream, and you trust that they're going to get there.
Well,
But
nobody actually did really. We weren't just delivering the mail; we were picking up outgoing mail. We ran mail both ways. So if we go to Bagram and we pick up a load that's going to go to, let's say, Gecko down in Kandahar or something like that, we go down to Gecko, and then we've got to pick up a load of mail there and then bring it back, because that's going to be shipped out to different locations as well.
So here
So
is
it was a round the clock thing. It was a two-way delivery. We had the Ring Road route. We had the route to Jalalabad. We had what they call the short route in Kabul itself. We had to run to different FOBs along that location. Phoenix, Eggers, Kia, all those places got mail as well. So that was kind of like a day off for the guys, because they were just around town, and they got to go back to the compound. Where if we took a long route to Ghazni or to Gardez or something like that, then we were basically running a lot longer missions. Some of our missions to Herat ran about 18 hours.
Jeez. And of course,
A lot of Red Bull.
A lot of Red Bull.
We would bring 3 to 4 cases of Red Bull for a mission, each mission.
Boy,
That and 10,000 in cash, get out of jail free.
Yeah, 10,000.
Tell me about this picture. What's going on here?
It's probably an RPG hit on a fuel tanker that didn't involve our convoy, that we had to skirt through. You can see probably the mail truck in front. This picture is probably taken from the rear vehicle.
Yeah. So there's a truck here up in front. That's probably a mail truck.
Yeah, that's a mail truck. And now this is there are no mail trucks between these two vehicles here. That might be a QRF response where we're just running with the gun trucks, or the team has a different configuration where they're running a lead vehicle and all their mail trucks and then 2 rear vehicles.
So this is one of yours in front, and then
Yeah, these are both ours.
both.
We got 2 PKMs up top, one in the front and one behind.
What's a PKM?
It's a machine gun.
Okay, machine gun, and a QRF, quick reaction force.
Yes, sir.
I'm catching on.
You are.
I'm catching on.
Well, you've been around. You should probably know.
Now look, if you look in the back of Alan's book that he wrote, it has all the acronyms in the back of the book.
That's right. That's you have the glossary in the back, and readers need that. So this is one of your gun trucks.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
It's a level 7 armor, probably TS 400 steel.
Yeah, F550.
Yeah, and I think it's Achilles' heel is the flat bottom chassis.
And how often would you run these missions?
Every day.
Every day?
Yes, sir.
Every day.
Every day.
Yes, sir. We ran initially when the vehicles came in, they were white, and we were running day missions, but we were getting hit a lot, and so we painted them black and started running at night. Kind of reduce our visual signature, but those trucks are so loud they knew we were coming.
They knew you were coming. Yeah. I can't help but go back to something you said, Money Mike, that I think, you say it offhandedly, or matter-of-factly, I should say. You say it matter-of-factly, but I think it warrants some reflection. That if one of you get killed on one of these missions, it doesn't make the news necessarily, right? It doesn't have the impact on the folks back home, or in even the global community. And that's one of the benefits of having folks like you doing this work, right?
Well, look, let me tell you, remember, Benghazi wasn't a big deal at first either. I knew 2 of those guys. I worked with them before that in Iraq, years before. Benghazi wasn't a big deal until it became one. There was a lot of Benghazis that happened all over the world, and the contractors were the ones who were taking the blunt of it. Right. But we all understood what our mission was and why we were there.
All right, Brad, you're going to ask the question that I think we're all wondering.
Yeah, I guess, this is an individual question, but why volunteer for such a dangerous job? And especially since a lot of you had already served in the military, was it the adventure, camaraderie, the money? I know that's an individual question.
All of the above, brother. All
Yeah.
of the above.
Yeah, I like being around like-minded individuals. I'm attracted to brotherhood. I've been a firefighter paramedic for almost 50 years, man. If you minus the 8 years that I did overseas deployment, those were some of the best times of my life. And so I'm really into the brotherhood. Me and Mike have been friends ever since we met. We just hit it off Ed, I owe him my life. He kept me alive, basically. And we wrote this book together. It was really therapeutic for both of us. We created the timeline. We went back and forth over all these different missions and stuff like that. It's interesting because a lot of people, not only are these missions classified, but they're classified in certain degrees where if we had a mission that didn't have a manifest, that was top secret. If we did have a manifest, we knew what we were carrying. But when we talk about our success rate, a lot of people don't realize this. Even though it was 98% success rate, that 2% was catastrophic in terms of takedown. We lost 10 guys in 3 years. That's how dangerous this mission was.
You lost 10 killed contractors on the Pony Express
in 3-year period.
In 3 years in Afghanistan.
Yeah. 5 guys in one hit.
And Doc, this is something, again, maybe I'm going to a place that doesn't mean something to you as much as it does to us. But, I'm thinking those are 10 guys who don't get buried in Arlington. Those are 10 guys whose families aren't classified as Gold Star families. Those are people who don't get honored necessarily on Memorial Day. But they're people who were fighting for our country, but in a different capacity than a military capacity. Is that hard? Is that a hard reality to live with?
Don Vale is on.
Don, okay. Why is Don laughing? He's laughing at what I just said.
His son, Chris, was killed.
His son was killed.
Yeah, I didn't work with Chris. I knew Chris and Matt, but we were there at different times on different teams. Ed had a better connection with them because Chris was his ATL.
What's ATL?
Assistant team leader.
Okay.
And when Chris ran the mission that was supposed to be, Ed's got survivors killed. So we have to deal with that in the aftermath of what happened to Chris and Matt. And they were, because they were prior military, they were given military honors, but a lot of things happened outside the norm that were basically, when it comes to repatriation for deceased, is a lot different when we're talking about foreign contractors versus American contractors. And I'm Canadian, so I'm technically a third country national. So God knows how I would have been treated or taken care of. We had guys that were sent home as cargo, as opposed to giving them the honors that they deserve. There are no epitaphs for contractors. And that's the thing that's sad. There are no after deployment or post-deployment programs unless you are a veteran. And, I'm not going to be able to play a PTSD card at the VA just because I'm a veteran, because it didn't have nothing to do with my time in the military. It was all about contractors. So where am I going to go? And a lot of things that happened, there were so many things that happened that people wouldn't believe. The only people that we could actually talk to are each other. And that's why we have such a strong brotherhood.
Donald Vale, thank you for joining us.
Thanks.
I would like to remember your son. Your son, I just very quickly looked him up. This is a picture.
Oh, there he is. Good looking guy.
Yeah.
How was he killed? When was he killed?
He was killed September 6th of 2010 on a mission that was completed, but he was loaned out to another group that hadn't really run the route, and Chris knew the route. And so Ed decided to have him and Matt, who is another great veteran that helped out. He was actually a Canadian veteran. And Chris and Matt died on the same day. Very tough day. I relive it every day.
I'm sure you do. And here he is. 5 years in the Marine Corps, wounded in the Marine Corps. You see him
Purple Heart.
Purple Heart there. But
we both made E5 about the same time in the Corps.
Are you serious? You were in at the same time?
Well, no, I was not. I was in 1980s. I was 1980 through 80, or 1980 through 1990. I'm a Beirut veteran.
Right.
I talked to you a while back about getting interviewed or whatever.
Right.
And we've got the 43rd coming up here this year, in 2026.
Right.
But it's just a strange connection of me serving, going into Beirut, Lebanon, and then Chris serving. He did 3 tours in Iraq. Like I said, Purple Heart. And when he ended up with SOC, he was just so happy with this group of guys that were so great together, such camaraderie. They knew each other, kind of like what the Marine Corps has. And then, when Doc knows the Marine Corps, being a corpsman, and it's that brother to the right, brother to the left. And that's the way he felt. Oh, Semper Fi, brother.
Hi, brother.
But I was kind of in his book, Al and Ed Ford's book, that I was shocked that one of the chapters talked about his death. And I know it hit these guys very hard, just because of my son. I think he was connecting with everybody and was
He's a damn good man. He was a damn good man.
Thank you. And all in all, I miss him every day. I still talk to Arnie, who was another member of SOC, but he was Scottish, correct?
That was our Scottish brother.
Yeah. He's a SAS, Special Operations.
Correct. And I know he's been back in the States once or twice. He's been with Matt's family through Canada. Excuse me. Yeah. But all in all, it's just what it is. The Pony Express. This goes back to back into our 1800s, delivering mail. I mean, they were carrying that same camaraderie with SOC when they picked up the Pony Express of delivering that mail. And, I'd get a call from my son, and we talk about how once the mail was delivered on going to the troops, and where they would pick up new mail and take it around to where it could be sent out, and certain packages that come out. But he remembered getting that when he was in Iraq, and that's how important these guys were over there in Afghanistan. At the time, the Marines and the military decided to use contractors to free up the servicemen to focus on what the mission was on the war on terror, instead of having to put this all together, logistics, and deliver mail and packages all around to other bases. They contracted out with SOC. And one thing we got to start doing, and I know I've worked with Al here the last year or two. There's no memorial here in this country.
No.
For private military contractors.
No.
And, they do more with less, and they accomplish the mission, and they need to be recognized. Al, what did we talk about? How many, was it like 6,000 to 7,000 private military contractors that have been killed over the years in war and terror?
8,000, over 8,000.
8,000? Okay. And
that's more than uniformed personnel killed.
There's several memorials being built here for the war on terror about members being killed. And I think we should add these young men and women that decide to do this. It's not just because they get a paycheck. You know, back in my day, they were called, oh, come on, help me out. Mercenaries. There you go. But nowadays, they have a mission just as important as the military mission. And, you know, they need to be recognized. And we need to put out there somehow of getting these other memorials that are added to, have them add some of these private military contractors. I've talked to the Marine Corps Museum about doing a 3-month setup
Yes.
with everybody
Yes.
that has died in the past years on the war on terror. And also there's a new museum opening up down in North Carolina. It's called the Carolina Museum of Marines.
Oh.
And they've already said that they would run come on, help me out again.
An exhibit?
Exhibit, thank you. I'm losing my brains after all these years. But, and they've already planned on doing that. They will do an exhibit for these contractors that do this.
And Don,
he's got a good point where you talk about the military subbing out to contractors for all of these support issues. But when you think about us accomplishing our mission, if we don't do that, they don't accomplish their mission, you know, and nobody really takes that to heart. If we're bringing ammo to a site somewhere and they're running out of ammo, then what are they going to do to protect themselves or to do what they need to do, you know, with weapons or fuel or food or vehicles, you know, that were essentially tacked onto all these other runs that we were making. So, and then of course, like you mentioned, a male being a large part of their morale. You know, if they're not in a good place, you know, without their male, they're not going to be combat effective. So, again, that was the importance to us. You know,
I mean,
going back, go ahead.
I was just going to say, and again, military contractors go back to the American Revolution, but what is new is this critical role that contractors are playing in these wars. You know, really kind of functioning kind of in lockstep or in tandem with the military, much more integrated way and in much greater numbers than ever before.
Yeah, that's true.
Don, you know, I'm looking at some of the comments here, and like Rick Arisman, you know, not eligible for National Cemetery burial, maybe because they're not in uniform when they're killed. Again, you wouldn't be considered a Gold Star family. I'm looking at Barb Smith here, who was just at a wonderful honor and remember Gold Star family dinner in Virginia. The Army Navy game honored Gold Star families this past weekend. You know, I would consider you a Gold Star father, but technically you're not because Chris was not in uniform.
Right. I run into that all the time. You know, I want to wear that Gold Star.
Yes.
I think I deserve to wear that Gold Star.
Yes.
I believe me, I'd rather have my son back than any of that. And, you know, I'm not saying that they should be elevated to where Gold Star families are with servicemen dying in battle. I understand that. But, you know, with the contracts that they sign with the military and with the government, that makes them a government employee.
Yes.
And they should have some type of eligibility for recognition for what they do. And I just don't understand why it's never been brought up, why it's never been talked about. And it's time to start the conversation. There's 8,000 mothers out there that are still grieving every day.
Don's pushing for the memorial museum.
Yep.
One of my things was to get a commemorative stamp, and a kind of the caveat onto that is one of our endorsements was from God, I don't want to forget his name at this time right now. 73rd Postmaster General of the United States.
Yes.
And he never knew that the mail delivery was subbed out to SOC. He thought the military was doing it. And when I contacted him for the endorsement, we gave him a book and we told him about it. And he gave us a glowing endorsement. And so I like to use him maybe as a way to get my foot in the door to get a commemorative stamp to honor these guys. There was a Pony Express stamp at one time, and I'd like to revisit that for the future contractors and the Pony Express.
That's a great idea. That's a great way to honor them.
That's why we wrote the book.
Yeah, very good thinking, Al. That's why you're the author.
let me, Doc, let me read what Patrick Donahue, the former Postmaster
There you go.
General
Thank you.
of the United States Postal Service wrote about your book. He said, as a 39-year veteran of the Postal Service and the 73rd Postmaster General from 2010 to 2015, I am proud to offer this endorsement for the Pony Express. The book Postcards Through Hell is a fascinating true tale of some of the bravest men to deliver the U.S. mail in war-torn Afghanistan. This book suits either the historian or the nonfiction reader. It is a riveting account of the SOC mobile operations teams who are contracted to support the military by delivering the U.S. mail and critical supplies. I was not aware of their individual exploits until I read this book. Authors Ford and Chiasson offer perspectives that I have not encountered before, despite reading other books on war. And this is from the Postmaster General. Postcards Through Hell paints a very clear and succinct picture of what it was like to run missions as security contractors along Ring Road, the deadliest road in the world. The men of the Pony Express are true patriots who risk life and limb to provide our military and other contracted companies their only real connection to home, the U.S. mail. I highly recommend this book to anyone interested in learning about their heroic acts, despite overwhelming odds against the Taliban and other criminal insurgents. They are all heroes in my eyes, and I truly thank them for a job well done.
Yeah.
How beautifully put.
Yes, well written, and it's nice to have the Postmaster General as your sponsor
Yeah.
with doing this.
Well, how about this? I'm just reading Zoom user. Thank you, Zoom user. You put a good question here in the chat. Had you been captured, or Don, had your son been captured by the Taliban, would you have been covered by the Geneva Conventions?
Nope.
Nope.
They let us know that before we go in. So no, we're not really, no.
So
I mean, they would try and get us out as contractors, but it's not the same.
That word doesn't exist with the Taliban.
Yeah, and
Right.
Colin put that too. Taliban does not adhere to international laws of warfare. But even if hypothetically, if they did, you still would have been covered, correct?
No,
Right.
not at all.
Okay. Dick Snyder asks, he said, I'm having a hard time understanding why the military wasn't delivering the mail. I know we sent several postal units to Southeast Asia, which we assumed were doing the mail mission, as they did in past wars and conflicts.
That's a good question for Al. And who was the other gentleman, the other jarhead?
Mike.
Mike. I just feel, I remember back in my day, you used to have an APO or an FPO where your family sent mail to, and then it was forwarded on to the ship or to another base that was close to where we were and delivered that way. We never had contractors back then doing it at that time. Now, this was the 80s. But now they need to focus on the mission of what's going on. They'd rather have the military, I'll just say Marines, or Army soldiers, focus on going out to the Taliban and not having to worry about when they come back of logistically putting together to get mail sent out and brought in. It's the mission. The mission has changed for everybody.
It's a question of surge capacity. Even not just delivering the mail, but even FOBs, COBs, fire bases are guarded by private security personnel. The military concentrates specifically on warfare, and the mail is not technically a priority for them.
Bill Chatham, you put in the chat a response that exhibits some knowledge of this situation. Could you talk about it? Answer the question.
No, absolutely. So I love Money Mike. I love Doc. I know these guys.
my brother.
Hey, buddy.
Fantastic human beings. But yeah, at the time, and I was there in the very early phase of everything back in.
I love your forehead, brother.
Yeah, there you go. And so it was just a matter of the mission in that part of the world was much different than Iraq. So it was much more of it, especially at that time, was a special operations mission. So the regular military units couldn't handle the volume. They didn't have the manpower. They didn't have the ability. A lot of times they didn't leave the FOBs, quite frankly. And you ask these guys and they can tell you about it. A lot of convoys didn't take off. And so somebody had to fill, like you're saying, fill that surge, especially if you had State Department personnel, you had other agencies, and you had private contractors involved as well.
Bill, what got you involved in this work?
I'd actually come from Iraq. I'd started in early 2003. So I started contracting in the very, very early stages of everything in Afghanistan and Iraq. I had got out of the military. I was stationed on Fort Bragg and come out of a different lifestyle. And frankly, 2 weeks later, I was back over with the same kind of units, doing the same thing with the same kind of people. It was the difference being, like they talked about earlier, was the talent, the quality of people without all the nonsense. You didn't have the politics of the big army or the Marine Corps or the Navy or any of that kind of thing. We had a job, we had a mission, we went and did it, and then we could come back and do whatever it is we wanted to do. So it was much more of a work hard, play hard type situation.
Yeah.
Hey, Todd.
Yes.
One of the reasons my son got into it is he felt the desire when he was 3 tours in Iraq. He felt the desire that he still wanted to help the people of Iraq and the people of Afghanistan. So that's what drew him into doing that. Along with, he also wanted to get into work with the State Department.
Mm-hmm.
And that was one way to get more, I'm terrible with words right now.
Yeah, more experience.
More experience
Yeah.
and to get into the State Department.
Yeah.
And so that's the big reason. There's always a reason behind it. It's not just that they decide to go one day and, I'm going to go make a paycheck and get shot at.
Well, you mentioned the paycheck. So the pay is better than the military, much better, I would think. How much are we talking about, if you don't mind me asking?
I have no idea.
You have to ask from 450 a day to 750 a day, depending on what contract you're running. I've even seen guys make 1,000 a day.
Yeah. And so at one time in the early days, and talking about State Department and some of the OGA stuff Mike had mentioned, right?
Yeah.
I remember guys coming out of squadron. So when I say squadron, I mean out of the unit, one of the JSOC Tier 1 units. I remember a guy talking about being offered 1,200 a day. And so but you're also grabbing master sergeants and sergeant majors and O grades and people with a lot of talent.
So, I mean, it's good money, So, 450 a day, 750 a day, 1,000 a day, good money. But it's not like, you do 12 months there and come home and you retire you live on it the rest of your life. It's not, you don't become millionaires doing this.
No, you make more, you spend more.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sue Watson.
Typical Marine. Typical Marine.
When I was with DynCorp, my contract basically it was 150,000 a year. And then you get a 10% completion bonus when you go into mission. And that 10%, because you are a contract employee, is only 10%. So you're, and as you deploy, your $92,000 is tax free, and then you got to pay taxes on the remaining 60,000. And so my completion bonus was like $15,000. That money went to pay the taxes. When I signed on with SOC, I didn't read the fine print because I'm no longer a contract employee. I'm an independent contractor, and my taxes were 33%.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah, and I didn't get a completion bonus on top of that. So my first year, I learned the hard way, and I ended up going into a rearage. So it's technically not a lot of money when you think about it. And again, you're on a 90-30 rotation as well. So you're 30 on or 90 on, 30 off. So you're a 1-year contract is basically only 3/4 of the year.
So you're 90 days on, 30 days off, and the 30 days off, you come back home to the US or Canada?
Well, you shouldn't come back to the United States because in order to be eligible for the $92,000 tax-free break, you have to stay out 330 days consecutively. So I would take 1 leave rotation in the United States. I'd take another one in Canada, to renew my passport or something like that. And then I would take 1 overseas, and I'd bring my wife over to, let's say we did Germany in 2009. So I would spend 1 month there. So I met the requirements for the tax-free break. But when it came time to pay the taxes, it wasn't 15,000 that I owed. It was more like 30,000. And I was just going, oh crap, where am I going to get this money? So I ended up contracting again, to make up for those losses. And then of course, now I need to save for the year that I'm working plus the year that I just worked. So, now it's just like a regular paycheck. So you really can't say it was money that kind of enticed you into it, so to speak. And again, I fall back on the brotherhood,
Yeah.
Right.
The reason I got along with Matt so well is because he was the only other Canadian other than myself on the contract. That's why we had that.
And I'll say one other thing, Al, is also the way that you guys trained. Because Chris went over probably about 2 months before, and he contracted with another company, and within a week, he was back home. He said, "Those guys will get me killed. They're just not organized. They're not put together. They don't have the right system. They're just more like banderos going out the gate. But with you guys, it was all executed just like a military mission. And in the book, you talk about of when you're coming up into the bases, a lot of times you'll get covered by the helos, depending upon what base, that if they're running a mission out there, they'll cover you also, the last 5 miles or whatever. And that's what you explained in the book.
Yeah. As long as we were within that medevac perimeter, that was good. There were certain areas that were hot zones, and basically that's where all the attacks took place, because I think maybe even the Taliban had that kind of intelligence, knowing, hey, we're going to have to be self-sufficient for up to 72 hours in some instances. So I carried med supplies for 10 guys or 3 days worth of stuff. But if I had the map, I could clearly demonstrate that for you.
And I will ask you if you could find that map, and maybe we could get you to share it. If we could make Doc a co-host here. Sue Watson asks, how many contractors are in country on the Pony Express at one time? How many?
Click on the notification.
Well, it depends. It always depends. I mean, because you had Americans, and then you had Europeans, and then you had local nationals, which were the Afghanis themselves. And some of them stayed on base on the camp that we had. So how many at the end were they running, Doc? How many groups were y'all running?
4 teams, 10 man per team.
Okay, 40. So there were 40 of you.
Yeah, at any given time, but there's, like I said, 1 team on leave. I believe
Right.
there's only 30 guys there.
Sue Watson, also thank you very much for including that civilian contractors website here on the Zoom side in the Zoom chat, civiliancontractors.wordpress.com. That had the picture of Chris Vale that I shared, and it has a lot of other stories and information on contractors who serve. Greg Yost. Absolutely, I was thinking of the Merchant Marine in World War II, playing a very similar role on the seas that these people were playing on the ground in Afghanistan and Iraq. And the history, again, of the military contractors goes back to the revolution and beyond. There's always contractors involved. Usually it was supplies and food. That was a big deal. Certainly in the Civil War, contractors were always supplying food and other things. Thank you, Sean, for sharing the book here in the chat. Again, the book is Postcards Through Hell. Let me open it up to questions or comments that people might have. I'm looking at Dave Seaver. Dave, I don't know if did you encounter any when you were in Afghanistan? Did you encounter any contractors?
Several.
And,
Yeah.
and what's the relationship like between those who are in the uniform and those who are not?
So to us, patients were patients. I evacuated contractors, U.S. military personnel, NATO military personnel. We had a Canadian diplomat, a young lady that was coming from Kabul. I forget where they were going, but their vehicle was hit by an IED. So, to us, patients were patients. It really didn't matter. We had a job to do, so we did it, Whoever was in the bed or on the litter, they got taken care of and, put on the aircraft and evacuated out of country.
But were there people working with you who were contractors?
No.
Okay.
No.
Well, the one thing I'll say is that, they're all veterans, but the military contractors don't have the lieutenant coming down saying, "Go over there and shave, damn it."
Yeah, big difference.
Yeah.
Yes.
I want to ask Henry Shepke if he could unmute. Henry is still a high school student. He's a senior in high school in Madison, Wisconsin. He joins us and has been for many years. You put a wonderful question here in the chat, Henry. Could you ask it?
Yeah, I was wondering, what is like the best way that our guests think to like spread awareness among the public about like military contractors and like their efforts during not only the war on terror but in previous conflicts as well.
Well, one is the book, obviously. It's such a small. I'm on a listserv, and so whenever a job pops up, I get kind of an invitation to apply for that job. It's a worldwide listserv, but it's very. There's probably maybe 2,000 people. Phil might be a part of that, and we also have the not WordPress, but there's an app. I'll have to go to my phone here to figure out what it is, and I get notifications on jobs that are available there. WhatsApp has a special group of special forces personnel that are looking for a certain skill set, and then they post those availability. They are not the people of contact, but they can give you a link to where you can go find out about it. Outside of the listserv, I really don't know. What's out there, for the public. Again, we wrote this book from 2009 to 2012 only because our contract got bought out by another company, and that company had some top secret clearances that were part of our missions that we couldn't write about. So we didn't mention anybody's name or any mission thereafter, although that contract did run until 2016 of December. We did write additional chapters, but we took those out, to honor the cease and desist, I should say, because of our non-disclosure agreements and our classifications.
Oh, I thought it was to clear out the Foot Locker.
No, no.
Well, you want to talk about that?
Well, you know, I battled with naming this book The Footlocker, but it really wouldn't get the point across to all the people about the Pony Express, you know. So I'm sitting there, how do I incorporate those two? You know, I was looking at different names for it, and you know what's available, what's copyrighted, what's not, you know. And it was a really a pain in the butt to try to write this book because we had to go through all of these different clearance issues. You know, we had to talk to different people and what can we do and what we can't do, and you know, but the Footlocker is probably the heart of the story, and it's a battle between Ed. This book is written about Ed Ford. I wrote it only because it's easier to put myself in his shoes. You know, having been there and knowing him personally, it's his story. You know, most of the contacts in here, and you'll see them. They're all chronologically listed in order of date and the type of contact that occurred. But every time something happened, he would save some kind of memento, you know, to kind of remind him of the contact. You know, whether it was a broken cell phone or a flashlight or even a rock that when the way it was broken half, when you put it together, it's like a heart. So they call it the heart of stone, you know, and he's putting this stuff in this locker. But as it gets worse and worse, these contacts are becoming more frequent and becoming more deadly. And, you know, it starts off with a couple of injured guys, and it starts off with a couple of guys that get killed that you know, maybe they're local nationals. So you don't have that, you know, that type of connection, so to speak. And then finally it's somebody, you know, a friend of yours, you know, that gets killed. And then eventually, like I said, the biggest one was the catastrophic takedown of 5 guys in one hit. And so every time he opened that Footlocker to put this momentum in, he battled with the ghosts that were associated with it. And it was, you know, he dreaded opening it to the point where he didn't want to open the Footlocker to put the thing in. And it was finally, you know, him having to identify a body on the table only by a tattoo. You know, having worked out with this guy and knew that he had a tattoo and he knew who that guy was, he started thinking about, well, I'm probably going to be the next guy on the slab, and it was time for him to get out of it. So in order for Ed to be effective as a team leader, I think that he needed that Footlocker. I think it helped him get past it, to suppress his feelings, to be more effective as a leader. And we keep all that stuff. We still have all that bloody schmogs. We've got all that stuff saved up. And those are the epitaphs to the guys that we're trying to honor in this book. These are mementos of the guys that got killed. You know, and this is the only way that the best way that when we came together. And you know, Mike actually started this whole thing. You know, he was working on a set as a security guy, and he met a writer. That guy wrote a couple of pilots for us, you know, but it wasn't a true story. It was based on a true story. And there's a huge difference to me. When you got, you know, there's no sidebar things that going on in this book. When the other writer started writing stuff, he wanted us to, you know, have a female on the run. Yeah. You got hit, and somebody gets kidnapped, and then we got to get some CIA money, and we got to rescue her ourselves. And I'm going, that's not the Pony Express. The book is the Pony Express, you know, and we didn't want to do that. We didn't want to change anything. And so when people, hopefully we'll increase our readerships with this profile, but when they read it, they're reading a true account. Nothing is embellished. As a matter of fact, it's probably understated. Only because nobody would believe that my driver, Dave Gegenbach, drove off a 12-foot cliff to avoid contact with an RPG. And now we're in a sand bed driving 8 miles per hour, you know, and providing suppressive fire just to get away from this threat. Nobody would believe that.
What about the IED that blew up that 18-wheeler and it went 10 foot in the air and kept going?
Now, there's a good picture right there. That's an ongoing battle between the 4 horsemen, which are on the right, and the Taliban, which are on the left. And we're driving through this hail of bullets. The guys on the right, as we're moving, are using our gun trucks as cover to take up different positions along the route. You know, it's just like, this is an ongoing battle that obviously when you take a picture, you don't see a bullet flying by, but trust me, they're pinging off our vehicles.
Wow.
Now, this is one where the mail truck got hit. And the follow vehicle smashed into it. If you look out the windshield, that's a bulletproof glass, weighs 300 pounds. That's unseated from the passenger, and that's his body print on the inside of that glass. That's a 50 caliber dish cut round. That tells you that bulletproof glass does not stop dish cut.
Wow.
There's Ed. And of course, don't forget about that good looking guy right there.
Colin Heaton, I want to ask you, this book that Doc and Ed wrote, Postcards Through Hell, I have a deeper appreciation for the story that you're telling after this conversation. I know that you're telling your story and Ed's story, but it's also a much larger story of what these military contractors experience and how they're not recognized. Somebody put in the chat, sad to say, I think it's Greg Yost, sad to say, but nobody gets recognition unless there's a movie made about it. Colin, is there any progress on that score?
Well, there is possibility. I worked with producer, actor Patrick Kilpatrick. Many may remember him from films like Death Warrant with Jean-Claude Van Damme and 220 other films. But anyway, I have several scripts, 3 go into production, 1 we're working on now from a book I wrote. But I've talked to several producers and directors about Al's and Ed's story, and they like the story, but they're not even military veterans, these guys in the film business. So at least if you have military experience, Ed and I were in the Corps together. So if you have military experience, you might be able to wrap your mind around the concept of a military contracting operation. I never did contracting, so I could understand the basics, but I don't know the nuts and bolts. Reading the book informed me of a lot of stuff I didn't know. So trying to convince these people to do a book on military contracting is kind of like trying to have Steven Spielberg do Auschwitz on Ice the musical. They can't really understand it. They don't wrap their mind around it. So I'm talking to them about this stuff, and there's a glimmer of light in their eye. They like the idea of violence, of drama, of patriotic duty, but they have to really encapsulate it into something they can, frame in their head. And they're having a hard time doing that, which is why when I get the momentum going and things are going well, I want to put them in direct contact with Al and Ed and let them, and Dale Dye. Dale Dye is kind of like a conduit because I got him to do an endorsement for them because he and I worked on Masters of the Air together. But I really want to have someone with enough juice and gravitas in the business to move this forward far beyond my capabilities. I want someone with more name recognition to take this on board and push it across the line.
Colin, you put an interesting comment here, a prompt in the chat. Al and Mike can explain the problems with the KIA and paperwork, as well as how the companies tried to get out of paying death benefits.
Yeah, this is common business. Mike mentioned it earlier that we're in Afghanistan, so we have to have an Afghanistan counterpart that stimulates their economy. It allows us to expedite a lot of paperwork, but with that paperwork, they extort additional money. So we want to get weapons in country through ITAR. We want to get vehicles in country. We got to pay these expedition fees through Kabul, through the Afghan government. And so we have like what they call a political officer. If the political officer said, hey, it's going to cost, $150,000 to get your paperwork moved to the top of the pile, who's to say that $150,000, it's only $15,000, who's to say how much it costs for the security license? Who's to say for visas and all of those things that the Afghan counterpart, including Intel, by the way, goes through in order for us to function in that country.
And Karzai's brother was a thief.
Oh yeah, it was narco.
Yeah, he was really bad.
And he held the southern borders, the south side and Kandahar and stuff like that. We talked briefly about having to deal with drug lords, and there's a criminal element, there's insurgents, there's foreign fighters, there's Taliban. We were so good at it, we actually had a bounty on our heads.
boy, oh boy.
Yeah.
I
Phil
was
Rios,
bad about spending my money, and my boss used to get mad at me.
Phil
Yeah, me too.
Rios.
Because I used to buy Red Bull with the op fund, and next thing you know, it's just like now you got to spend your own money on that. But that's a different story. That's more of an internal strife.
Phil Chatham put many years of doing this, and people never seem to understand what contractors do. I absolutely agree. Phil Rios, you had your hand up earlier. Did you have something to say?
Yes, I did, Todd. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, I can.
I just wanted to educate those who have not experienced being in a battlefield environment in the combat zone to receive a letter, which is like gold. I was a art major in Sac City College, and I got drafted, and I went from an art student to a 95 Bravo prisoner escort interrogator, 1970. I was against the war, and but I served my country. And the letters that I got were precious. They were valuable, and I'd read them again. And I exited the service in 1972, and I stayed drunk for 2 years. And then I went into the National Guard 75, and I stayed with that unit, the 270 MP Company, National Guard Sacramento. We got activated 1990 for Desert Storm. In 1990, the mail was processed and delivered by APO. Those who don't know what an APO is Army Post Office, and that's who was delivering the mail then. I do believe in 1992, 1991, Halliburton started taking over the food, the commissary, and the mail. Halliburton. But in
Correct.
1991, we started, they had this thing, any soldier mail, people would start writing mail. We just get truckloads of mail, just truckloads. And they have these big bins, and you can walk by and just grab any letter, marked any soldier. And I grabbed a couple and I started writing. And it was just a blessing to see the response of people sending their love through letters in 1991. As a comparison to 1972,
Yeah.
when I came home and got spit on and called names. So it's a big change. There's one letter in particular. It was from a editor of Athens, Texas, a newspaper, and I wrote back to them, and we corresponded back and forth. I didn't know who the hell they were, but we started writing a letter, and they ended up getting the Texas flag, processing it through Texas legislature, signed by Senator Benson, and they sent it over to me, and I flew that flag on my antenna, and I went into Kuwait with my squad, 91, with the American flag and the Texas flag. So my squad got their letters, and it just helped us get through. We saw stuff in 1991 going into Kuwait. The news never showed. People say it was a short war. I lost a lieutenant on the sands of Saudi. So the mail, to receive the mail was important, and what those guys did in Iraq, it was like acts of mercy, just helping the soldiers just get through the next day,
Yeah.
the next hour, and that's all I got to say. Bye.
Thank you, Phil. Thank you for that testimony about how important the mail is to morale. I mean, it was, 80 years ago, and it was 10 years ago. But really amazing. I guess I just didn't understand the impact, how important the mail still was in our wars in the 21st century.
Well, you get those smells when you open the letter.
Yeah.
It smells like home. And it's like a breath of fresh air.
And isn't it different when you see somebody's handwriting even? You're able to hold something in your hand from back home rather getting it digitally or electronically, however they get here through the radio
It's a
waves.
long lost art.
It's a long lost art. Yeah. Do I want to again invite people to comment, to ask questions, share stories if they'd like. I know um, uh, there's someone, Sila, looks like Sila is
Scylla.
somebody you know. Scylla
Yeah, Scylla. Is
is
she here?
somebody you know.
Yeah, Scylla's she's writing a book. Good friend of mine gave me a really nice endorsement. She's a female Marine, and she ran like a tap out, like a self defense for women, and she's just a great person. So she's getting ready to write her book. But I did see her picture up there a while ago.
Thank
But
you.
hey, girl, there you are.
Thank you.
Hi.
Thank you for that. Yeah, I mean, I was in 88 to 94, and so pre-internet and all that. So yeah, letters were a big deal for us as well. I was overseas a few times, Okinawa, but we had pen pals, like some of our fellow Marines. You know, for some of us who didn't get a lot of family letters, some of their relatives from back home would write us. Um, so and you know, when I read this book, like there was just for me a lot of emotions came up because even though I wasn't in combat, just being overseas, being disconnected from home, being disconnected from the United States, like you just have a different perspective on a lot of things, and you build your camaraderie. Your Marine brothers, sisters become your family, and so yeah, I would just say the same thing. And like my heart goes out to the Vietnam veterans who did not, when they came home, you know what they experienced. So every time I hear it, you know, I feel like my generation was raised by Vietnam veterans, so we have a special connection with them as well. But thank you.
All right. So Scylla,
Thank you.
Yes.
here is a picture of you. This does not look
Oh.
like a Marine uniform.
So yeah, I did 6 years in the Marine Corps. I have been in the Texas State Guard for I think 12 years, 13 years, 12 years.
And is the
So
Texas State, pardon my ignorance here, Scylla,
yeah.
which my ignorance, which is vast. This is not, the Texas State Guard is not National Guard. It's something different.
That's correct. Texas has three military forces, the Texas National Air Guard and Army, and then the Texas State Guard. So our chain of command goes to the governor,
Okay.
whereas the National Guard goes to the president.
Got it. Got it. Oh, how interesting.
Yeah.
And you are writing a book about your own service?
So my book, it's sort of, I'm in the very early stages. Been asked to write a book for a few years, and I've thought about it. And so initially, it's really going to be tailored to women in the military leadership,
Okay.
the leadership struggles, challenges, and that sort of thing. Yeah.
I'll make this invitation to you, Scylla, and also to anybody else who isn't connected with the Veterans Breakfast Club. That is, we don't have your email, we don't have your contact information. I would love to contact you again to have you come on and maybe share more of your story. We're especially, as we're scheduling in 2026, we really want to make sure we get a lot of women voices, especially in Women's History Month for March. So we're looking at that time period.
That's
So
great.
please do stay in touch if you can. And again, this is the Veterans Breakfast Club, and you could reach us. You can go to veteransbreakfastclub.org. You could email me, Todd, TODD, at veteransbreakfastclub.org. And we can make sure that you get our schedule updates and all that stuff. So,
Okay.
and we publish a magazine. I should let people know we publish a quarterly magazine. It comes out every quarter. We're working on our winter edition now that will be out next month. And we mail that out to 12,000 people and then hand distribute another 8,000. So if you don't get the magazine, it's because we don't have your address. Please let us know your address. And I'm not just talking to you, Scylla, but everybody here who's listening. Let us know your address. We'll make sure we get that magazine.
Well, thank you.
All right. Well, thank
And
you.
I'll let you know, young lady, one of the biggest, hardest things is funding to make sure that bucket is already full, keeps getting full, so your book can go through the process. Like we were the Beirut veterans, we've been working on a movie. Michael Ivy's the director for now going on probably 4 years now, and we keep losing funding. And if you don't have enough money to keep it going to get to the end, it's hard to bring that back up and go out there and try and fill up your bucket again. So always keep talking about it. Always talk to everybody that you can, and that will help get your book done.
Yes, yes. And I should say, Don, you bring up Michael Ivey. We were just talking, Sean Hall, our director of programming, were just talking about Michael Ivey. And Sean, you just contacted Michael. Our idea, Don, for next year was to get to a reading of his script
Okay.
about the Beirut.
He
Sean?
did write a play. I don't know if he
That's-
told you that.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
Right.
Ironically, I just reread it today. Beirut Brothers, Semper Forgotten. A wonderful stage play
Right.
based on remembering the Beirut bombing, what veterans have gone through in remembering that and trying to get other people to remember it. I'm talking with him next week. Can't wait to tackle this play and see
Right.
what he has.
Yeah, very good play.
Yeah.
And we're always looking, and again, I guess this is where I see that we're coming the last few minutes of our program here, but we're always at the Veterans Breakfast Club looking for new ways to tell a story, better ways to share a story. People write their stories, people sit down to do interviews, they make films, and then they have these conversations like we're having now. We also do in-person storytelling breakfasts. That's where we got our name, Veterans Breakfast Club. And we do about 40 of them a year. We're just putting our 2026 schedule together. We have a breakfast coming up on Saturday, our last of 2025, here in the Pittsburgh area. There will probably be about 200 people there. We'll get a bunch of sixth graders. We'll get family members there. And we just go around the room with the microphone and have veterans share a story. We also have an event coming up in Youngstown, Ohio, on Wednesday, where we'll do something similar. So this is all to say, if you have a story to share, we'd love you to come and kind of share it with us. And if you have a book to share, that's a great way that we can help get the story out too, because we're always trying to connect veterans with the public, veterans with people like me and with Sean, who are not veterans. And so we need to have all this translated to us. We need to have these stories told to us.
You know what's interesting for me is I haven't been able to make any kind of a connection with the Postal Service outside of Patrick Donahoe. So I'm on this U.S. Postal Service group, USPC delivery service, all kinds of things. None of these guys seem interested in this story. I just don't know what to do. That I thought that during my 42-page proposal, I had listed them as a possibility of generating interest with the story because it's about delivering the mail. It's the United States mail in a foreign country.
How did you get the name?
Congressman. You got to get your congressman.
Well, I don't have a congressman. I'm Canadian, but
well, you live in yeah. You know what I mean. You got to get someone in politics involved in that. Because we're still trying to do it for the Beirut one.
Yeah.
It's not an easy thing.
Well, and again, so I'm not harping on the book as much as the fact.
Do you have a design?
I beg your pardon, sir?
Do you have a design for the stamp?
Yes, I do. Yeah. It's not about the stamp either. It's more about even guys that received mail do not know we got it there.
No,
right.
No idea. How would they? How would they know? How would any of us know?
Like,
Again,
there's a couple of fobs where they knew, hey, this is the mail truck coming in or whatever. They might line up for that, but it was very rare. Again, being declassified or being classified for such a long period of time, and now that it's out in the open, it's just like that's the hardest part. We had to learn how to write, then we had to learn how to make a proposal, then we had to learn how to market. It's just like we're knuckle draggers, we're shooters, we're it's there's an interesting thing. I'll say this before we leave. Is our editor, other than Colin, was telling us, hey, there's no female perspective in this story, and I was just, And she wrote to us, hey, you need to reach a broader audience. And so I go, what are you talking about? He says, no women on the contract. He goes, well, what about your wives? What about the mothers of the guys that were killed in action?
She has a good point.
Yeah. And so we conducted something like 22 other interviews. And then we created a chapter titled Calling All Wives.
Yeah.
Just to do that. And that was our intention, is to reach out to a broader audience. We want everyone to know about the guys that sacrificed everything for this contract.
I've got to tell you, Doc, here is our Veterans Breakfast Club magazine. We have put these in hundreds and hundreds of boxes that were shipped to people,
that we might have delivered then.
Yeah. And so, but once again, those things go in boxes. I have no idea. And I never even gave really a thought to how they got to their recipient, how they got to the destination. Your book and this conversation really opened my eyes to that, and also to this larger world of military contractors that is largely unknown to us, even to people here at the Veterans Breakfast Club. So we're really grateful to you for bringing this stories to us. And I hope that as you make progress, two things. I'd love to, if you have an update ever to share with progress on the book or the stamp or anything else, that you do that. The second thing is, I really like your writing, and I would love to run, with your permission, an excerpt in our magazine sometime. But I will talk.
So you got the article. You got the article I wrote to you, right?
Oh yeah, it's wonderful, and I want to talk to you about that. And but we'll talk about that down the line. Okay.
All right. Yes, sir.
All right. Thank you very much, Doc. Thank you, Sean. Thank you, Mike.
Thank you for having us.
John, Phil, thank you very much for coming on and sharing this time with us. Good night, everybody. We hope to see you on Wednesday night and Thursday night. Take care.
Semper Fi.
Semper Fi,
guys.